This video was brought to you by Noble Knight Games. More about them at the end of the video.
Hey everybody, Kimberly here, and I'm excited to share with you my experience playing the A.R.T project. This is a cooperative game from 2023 that, if you saw my comments in my cooperative games of last year, someone that I work with at Rada's channel, Richard Ham, said, I cannot believe you didn't pick the A.R.T project for your top 10 cooperative games of the year. And then I wrote back, well, I haven't even played it. So for me, I was like, I gotta get my hands on this. If I'm getting recommendations or people who think this game might fit my player, like game type, my style, my gaming group. So very excited to play this game again and again and again because it's a challenge, it's fun, and there are tons of maps that you get to play with, 6 that come in this game. So what's the A.R.T project? You are essentially trying to stop thieves from stealing art all across the world, and for each game you're going to pick a map that is a particular country or location. And you're going to start with the Japan map. That's going to be your kind of entry into it. After that, you can move down the line going through Egypt, the United States, Scandinavia, Polynesia, and Rio de Janeiro. These maps don't necessarily get harder per se, they just simply change the strategy and a little bit of the complexity with the game. It just makes it different. And I think that's really important in this game because if you play it through, you essentially are getting the hang of the game. I think it took us 3 plays just to understand and kind of figure out and win this game through on that very first map of Japan. And I've played with a variety of player counts and it's loads of fun. So this game, again, players are essentially stopping thieves from stealing artwork and we are essentially trying to collect the artwork ourselves. Now, what this actually looks like is players are going to have a choice. And this is the start of every round. Players are going to draw cards from the draw deck. That is your time in the game. It's essentially your timer. If you go all the way down through the deck and you reveal the here's your last round card, you have to have won that round or sooner or else you lose the game. So the timer is the amount of turns you take for the game. And I think that's really, really clever. So no matter how many players you have, you just shuffle up this deck of cards, and at the start, players take 2 cards. You look at your 2 cards, and it has a variety of information on it. The first thing at the very top bar you're going to see is stuff you have to pay. And stuff you have to pay comes in the form of resources or health. It might even be free. So depending on what card you have, there might not actually be a cost, but health is going to look like hearts, and players start the game with a number of hearts based on how hard you want the game to be. This is where you really put in your complexity. Do you start with 4 health, which is easy, 3 health, which is kind of moderate, 2 health is hard, and then they say 1 health if you just really, I don't know how you play with 1 health. I will tell you right now, I've never played with that. That sounds extreme. It sounds super hard. Because if you just can assume any player goes down to their 0 health, they pay their last heart on their card, you lose. So if any player loses all their health, the game is over. And again, with a lot of cooperative games, kind of, a la pandemic style, there are a variety of ways to lose the game. But that's going to be 2 ways: getting through the deck, which is your timer, and then dying or losing all your health, which any player does that and it's over. The next bar that you see down from the cost is going to be the amount of paws or gloves that you put out on the table. I say paws, but they're like little white gloves. Those represent the agents that are working against you. This is bad. This is not going to be good. And you're essentially going to put out 1 white glove, a little wooden meeple, for every picture that you see there in that location. So it might be 1, it might be 2, there might be 2 different ones, there might be 3 or like multiples of the same one. But whatever that is, maybe not any, you have to put out those agent gloves. Then finally, the good thing that happens is that players are going to receive what's in the 3rd bar. And that could be walkie-talkies, it could be fuel, it could be guns, or it could be health, which is hearts. And I like how easy all the icons are and the symbols here are. And there is a limited number of the resources. And once you have them all on your van, which is your collective area for all players to use, you can't have any more. And so you want to kind of use things up before you gain them again in case you are kind of planning a really big heist or a really big, not heist, we're not heisting, we're against heisting, we're like anti-heisting, we're getting the heisters essentially. But in case you want to plan a really big get, like you're essentially going to fight and you're fighting those stealers, you definitely want to have some guns at hand and you want to hopefully spend the walkie-talkies to bring in some allies because all these resources do cool things for you. That's the card phase though. That's the beginning of every round, is essentially drawing your card, picking one of the two. And that's where the cool thing comes in. Every player gets this choice of, well, what resources do we have so we can spend? Where should I be mobilizing or placing these baddies in these cities or these locations? And then what resources do we need? What are we looking for? Do we need health? Do we need fuel so we can actually move to new locations? Do we need guns so that we can fight better? Or walkie-talkies so that we can, again, gain those allies while we're fighting. It's cool. It's a really cool opening system that gives players just that bit of choice and agency that lets them contribute to the team, because then players are just going to execute their card in whatever order they want. Someone says, I want to go first. Someone says, well, I need to go after you so I can spend the fuel you just got. And then the last player says, well, I don't mind going last because I don't need to spend anything, but I'm going to give us a bunch of stuff. And so you can talk it through, you can work it out, and you can figure out who's playing what. After you place out your cards one at a time, though, you're going to take a look after every card to see, do you have 3 of the same picture? And these are going to be the pictures that are located in all the different cities on your map or your board that you're playing on. And if you do, you will take those cards away. You see the pictures on the back of the cards you just picked. Then you'll put a box or a little piece of artwork in that city. That essentially is everyone collaborating. Here's the artwork, but this is definitely what you need to clear the baddies out of the city in order to collect that and save it, because you don't want the baddies to get it. So that's going to be that last piece that you take a look at once the cards are played. The next thing is movement. If you have enough fuel, you can just move. 1 fuel is going to get 1 player to an adjacent space along a line from city to city. And if everyone needs to move in your game and you don't have enough fuel, you can also pay with your health. You can only pay with your health, though, for any missing resources as long as the resource is not available. If it is, you have to use it. But health is really vital. You kind of don't want to, but you might need to spend a heart just to get to the city, because the next phase is fighting. And players can fight. They have a die. It's a d6. And if you have any of those allies that you essentially walkie-talkied in, you can roll those dice too. And you essentially have to meet the threshold of where your current track is and how many of those gloves are in that city. And so your threshold might be 10. So I'm rolling a d6 and I have a fellow player rolling a d6, and then we have 1 ally. So that's a possibility of 18 points, but it could also just be 3 if we all roll 3 ones. Each of us rolls a 1, boo, you know? There are some ways to mitigate dice rolls though, and I like that, because if you have a roll to resolve, you've got to have some options for players to boost or add like 1 or 2 points, which that's what guns are for. If you want to discard a gun from your van, it essentially adds 2 to your total score. So if we rolled 8 and we needed 10, we could pay 1 gun, and there we go, we've got our 10 threshold, and we were able to kick all those baddies' butts in that town, removing all those gloves. The other thing you can do is take a look at that splay of cards that you have that you play at the beginning of each round. If you did not reach, or you have cards left over after looking at 3 matching images, you can discard a card, and for each icon that's on the card, you get to re-roll a die for the icon. So if you have 2 icons, you discard that card, you can roll 2 dice. It's great because sometimes you get the ones and all you need is a 6. You're like, if I could just roll a 5 or 6, then I could get this, and then we don't have to spend the guns, and you can save your guns for later. You can also have multiple fights in that round if players are dividing themselves, dividing and conquering, to go over here, to go to a different city, and you then resolve those fights in the turn order that you think might benefit the group the best. So, really cool. That's going to be after movement, after fighting, and then we get to the end of the round essentially, and you have to check. Are there a lot of those white gloves in a space? If you've got 5 or more, that city is essentially lost and you lose the city. And if there's any art in that city, that art is lost as well. That city became overwhelmed with those thieves and you kind of let things get out of hand. So you might not win a fight, you went for it and you didn't get it. So maybe that city's lost if there were 5 or more of those gloves in there. But that's that kind of devastating end of the round. Did we kind of prevent all the yucky stuff from happening? The other bad thing is that you're not allowed to cross through or enter lost cities. So not only is it bad for the team, it might be bad for lost artwork, which of course adds more points for you to overcome in fights. Kind of gives you this ongoing, threshold you have to meet. But it also prevents you from mobilizing in the way that you want to mobilize. That's what a round is. And then players are going to essentially do it again the next round. And you're essentially trying to get the artwork in the right cities, clean out those baddies, those thieves that are the white glove image, and work together so that you can collect the requisite number of artwork, which are those little cubes, really cute cubes. I mean, this has cooperative written all over it. It is super challenging. It is loads of fun. And I love the work together, but also you get to have some plans yourself and you get to really advocate for what you think is the best strategy to approach that next round. Just a lot of fun. And now you have all these maps. So there's just this replayability. Once you've figured out the game, much like Pandemic, you play and then you play and then you play and you have, varying levels of difficulty, but in the art project, you have 6 maps in the game. Like you don't have just like expansions or you have to buy extra games. No, in the core game, you have 6 maps. So I think that's really cool and I just feel like I want to play it again. It's fun and I really like that there's that mitigation with the roll to resolve, but that's kind of how you fight and it's cool. It's really fun. So tons of fun, love it. Love how streamlined and kind of straightforward it is too. It's a nice size box. It's kind of a, long, weird size box, but it totally works. And I think it might have, had I played it in 2023, made my top 10 list. All right, everybody. Thanks for staying tuned to my take on the art project, what makes it cool, and what makes me want to keep playing it again and again. All right, I will see you later. Bye!
Noble Knight Games is your portal to all things gaming. Visit them online at nobleknight.com, or if you're near downtown Madison, Wisconsin, you can enter their fortress, which features 5,500 square feet of roomy retail and gaming space. Noble Knight Games hosts daily game groups and events and a free-to-play board game library. Their storefront offers access to thousands of tabletop gaming products, from the newest games and hobby supplies to rare, collectible, and vintage titles from all over the world.